Hey guys, J-Man here for a review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Saw this last night. Me and like 20 others. Opening night. Empty theater. I've never seen it that empty. People did not want to see this movie. They don't care about it. There's a good reason for it. I'm going to explain it in a minute. I saw it with Steve, Sean, and and Owen from the Action Elite. And I don't really know exactly what they thought. We did talk about it over. I know that Sean was not favorable, and I know that Steven was not favorable. We never gave our official rating scores, which I will do. I will use my space system: story, pacing, artistry, characters, enjoyment. Each category gets a score between 0 to 2. 2 is the best you can get in any category. If a movie gets a 5 or 6 out of 10, that's kind of a pass in my system. If everything gets a 1, if everything gets a score of 1, you get kind of a pass movie. Like, yeah, the story was okay. If you say the story was okay, the pacing's okay, the artistry's okay, the characters are okay, the enjoyment factor's okay, you get a 5 out of 10, you're like, yeah, that's an okay movie. 5, 6, 7 or 8, it's like, wow, that was really good. 9 or 10 is awesome. Anything lower than that obviously is not good. And people have known me to be using this system for a long, long time. I am, and some people have commented on this, and I do appreciate that, is that I'm a pretty fair reviewer in my mind. So, I mean, everyone's got different tastes and different, kind of values on that they place on films. Some people, if they love the character, that's enough for them, or they love the actor, they just might be like, yeah, it's Tom Cruise, and I love all Tom Cruise movies, even the ones that aren't that good. I have been known to be pretty fair down the line, but skew positive, right? I love movies, love going to the theater. I love eating my popcorn, watching it. I buy a lot of movies. I buy movies I don't like just to complete collections. I'll buy every single, Superman thing that comes out, whether I like it or not, just for my collection. I buy all the Indiana Jones things, whether I like them or not, just to have them in my collection. And this is going to be a little bit longer. There's no spoilers. So basically, I do skew positive because, I want to enjoy movies, right? When I don't like a movie, like let's say Eternals, I did not like the Eternals. I didn't really like Black Panther 2 at all. With some of these Marvel movies I did not like at all. But I really enjoyed Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness. I thought that was a lot of fun. It was kind of bonkers and really a lot, very entertaining. So, and I thought it looked great. I love the spell casting, and I think Scarlet Witch was awesome, man. She was pretty badass. Benedict Cumberbatch is great. I didn't even mind America Chavez. I thought, yeah, she's kind of fun, right? But yeah, I did not like the Black Widow movie. I did not like the Black Panther movie. I did not like Eternals at all. I don't remember what other movies came out. So I really hated those movies a lot. So yeah, it's weird, right? Now, Indiana Jones is a childhood thing. I had my childhood read-along books. I wanted to be an archaeologist. In grade 7, I did a presentation about wanting to be an archaeologist, and I had to explain what it was. Nobody knew what it was. And I said, well, it's like Indiana Jones. And I'm like, oh, okay. I used to watch all those shows on TV, like National Geographic stuff, where they dig up things and whatever. Even up until the first year of university, and history was my best subject. So up to the first year of university, I was still planning on it. And then I just like, you know what? I don't know. Something happened and it just didn't work out for me. So I switched everything to film because I always loved movies and superheroes and comics my whole life. And I drew my own comics. I did my own radio show. We filmed our movie at 16 years old. We made a whole bunch of movies. I've got tons. I've got like at least 15 movies that I made as a kid. And I kind of shifted over to, arts, entertainment, film, writing, that kind of stuff, right? But archaeology was always there, and it was always because of Indiana Jones. The first 2 films, Raiders and Temple of Doom, they're in my top 20. I've kind of moved them around as I've seen other films, whatever. I'm kind of putting them back in the top 10. Like the lowest that they ever were was number 12. Raiders and Temple to me are both masterpieces, 10 out of 10. I love pulp movies, pulp adventure serials, the novels. Like I read The Spider and like Shadow, Doc Savage, G8, Operator 5, all those great ones. You guys have seen my reviews. You've seen my serial reviews, Spy Smasher, The Adventures of Captain Marvel. I love that one. Anything like Green Hornet, really, any of that, Zorro, all of those kinds of ones. So I love these pulp adventures, and I love Raiders and Temple of Doom. I think they're both 10 out of 10 on my scale. I think they're both masterpieces. In fact, I even like Temple of Doom a bit more because of the grittiness of it, and it really feels like a chapter play. Like every 10 minutes, there's like Indy is in peril. There could have been a cliffhanger chapter. It's like he's in the Obi-Wan club, he gets poisoned, then it's like, duh. Chapter 2, what will happen? Indy is poisoned. Will he find the antidote? Finds the antidote. Then there's the car chase on the streets. Then he gets in the airplane. There's no one flying the plane. Right? End of the chapter. Will Indiana Jones escape the check? Come next week and find out, right? And then he escapes that one. And then they go to the palace. It's like, oh no, the guy's attacking him in his room. Will he survive? Right? Then he continues on. Then they're being crushed by the spikes. You're like, oh no, will they survive? All of that's like literally, somebody could do this. I'm surprised someone hasn't done it. Maybe they have, I haven't seen it. Raiders, same thing. The exploration parts of Raiders are awesome. The action's very inventive and cool. Raiders is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Music comes together perfectly, especially Temple of Doom. All the music cues, and there's a lot of moments, like saving the kids, Short Round beating up the Maharaja. And I'll give you an example of something really crazy in Temple of Doom as just an example to so you understand. When he's fighting that large guy, the big Indian guy, right? He comes out, it's like, you're like, oh shit, here you go, right? So he comes out and they're fighting each other. And now normally you would just have a fist fight, right? But instead they have a fist fight on a conveyor belt. So you're like, ooh, that adds a level of coolness to it because there's this conveyor belt thing. Yeah, but at the end of the conveyor belt, it's a wheel that's crushing all the stuff that they're mining. So you're like, well, now they have to beat each other up before they fall into that conveyor, into that wheel and get grinded up. So you're like, oh, wow, that's even more exciting, right? Yeah, but here's something else. The Maharaja has a voodoo doll of Indy and is stabbing it at precise times, and he's having fun with it, which really makes it even more bad. He's stabbing him in certain locations to like knock him down or whatever. I mean, this is crazy, right? Like, there is a lot of components to this simple fist fight. Even in Raiders, when he's fighting, it's the same actor, when he's fighting the big German guy, they're not just having a fist fight. They're having a fist fight while other people are surrounding them. Marion is shooting them with the gun or whatever in the airplane, and the plane itself is moving around, so they have to constantly duck the plane while fist fighting. So they're going on top of the plane, they're fighting it, then finally the propellers finally do in that guy, right? There's a lot of components, okay? So those two movies are masterpieces to me. 10 out of 10, they're gritty. There's some gore in them. They're a little bit scary. They're definitely spooky. There's great stuff with the arc. Every time Indy gets a little bit closer to uncovering the arc, something happens mystical, like where their guy's looking at the headpiece, and then he twists it. He's like, oh, you have to subtract an inch from the staff of Ra. When he's saying that, there's a ooh, like there's like, and you're like, because now they're getting closer. Every time someone gets closer, there's something going on with music cues or some sort of like, mystical thing, or like the wind blows or so, like this, like, I mean, these movies are master. There's a reason why everyone's like, oh, Indiana Jones, Raiders, right? Some people don't like Temple of Doom. They think Willie Scott's annoying. False. She is a hilarious character. She's supposed to be annoying. This is a nightclub singer in 1930s. Like, did you think she got forced to go on the adventure because Indiana Jones dragged her with him to get the antidote, so she got forced to go. She didn't want to. It's not like she's an adventurer like Short Round, who's an adventurer. And remember, Short Round presses the button and leans against the wall and causes that thing to close. That was Short Round, who I love. I love Short Round. He did that. Willie had to go through the bugs, and you think she wants bugs on her? I don't want bugs on me, and I'm living in 2023, and I'm not particularly scared of bugs, but I don't want them on me. She's caked in bugs while she's trying to like stop that thing from falling, and she overcomes that fear and saves them. So how is Willie Scott so bad? She seems pretty cool to me. And she's easy on the eyes. So there's that. But literally, like, it's so fun. It's even when they're getting crushed, they're not just getting crushed. There's spikes that come out, then there's bugs preventing her from saving them. It's like there's a lot of things going on in each of these movies, right? It's like there's a pit of snakes. It's like, yeah, but the snakes are everywhere and they're going to get you, right? They're going through her shoe and stuff. It's like really crazy. Okay, so that brings me to Last Crusade and Last Crusade. I felt that that was a step down, big time. A lot of hijinks and goofiness. Indiana Jones sees a guy in the beginning who's an archaeologist stealing that cross, and he gives him the hat. So Indiana Jones didn't even create his own look. He stole his hat and coat from another random unnamed archaeologist. That's how Indiana Jones got his hat and glove. And they show how he got his whip. You're like, oh, okay. And how he got his scar. It's like, okay. And then at the very end, they make fun of his name. They're like, oh, Indiana Jones. Oh, that's the dog's name. Your name's Henry Jones. That's how you end your trilogy, with making fun of Indiana Jones's name. No, I think, and then Crystal Skull. Everyone hates Crystal. Well, people don't like Crystal Skull because they felt it was a major step down from Last Crusade. I didn't think it was a major step down from Last Crusade. I thought it's on the same level, maybe a little bit less than Last Crusade. I know a lot of people love Last Crusade, but I don't like the fact that Indiana Jones is being made fun of. His dad keeps poking fun at him, and people are like, well, it's just all in fun. I'm like, no. Like, Indiana Jones was like a hero to me who I wanted to be. I would cosplay as a little kid. I would dress up as Indiana Jones. I never dressed up as Superman, who's my favorite character of all time. Never dressed up as Batman. Never dressed up as these guys. For Halloween, I would go as Penguin. I went as Penguin, actually. For Halloween, I would dress up. But for me wanting to be the character in and act out things, I acted out Indiana Jones. Both Raiders and Temple of Doom, loved them, 10 out of 10. Last Crusade's probably like a 7 out of 10. So by my rating system, it's still a fun movie. It's very enjoyable. There's some cool adventures. I like the story. I like the end part for sure. Finding the Grail, that was really neat. And I was content with that being the last one. And I thought overall, this is a great trilogy. To me, it's sort of like the Star Wars trilogy. Star Wars and Empire are 10 out of 10 masterpieces. Jedi has some weird things in it. It's like this part 3 thing. They did it with Lethal Weapon. They did it with RoboCop. They did it with the Tim Burton Batmans. All of a sudden, the part 3 is almost like apologizing for the part 2, right? It feels like Return of the Jedi is like apologizing. Like, well, we're gonna make this more fun now for kids. And I love Ewoks. I love Return of the Jedi. I think it's great, but it's definitely a step down, right? Last Crusade is definitely a step down. However, I was content with both those trilogies and be like, that's the trilogies and I'm done. If they were going to bring back Indiana Jones, they should have recast Indiana Jones. I know people are going to disagree with me, but Indiana Jones is an adventure character. He doesn't need a lot of like backstory and baggage. Like, oh, let's bring in his dad. Oh, let's bring in his wife. Let's bring in his son. Because once you bring all those elements in, you have to explain them all. So this movie has a whole explanation of where's Mutt Lange? What happened to that guy? Where's Marion? I thought they were married and happily ever married. They split up and they got married again. Where is she now? So all this needs to be explained in Dial of Destiny. The Crystal Skull, it's goofy. There's a lot of goofy things in it, right? But I think the goofiness started with Last Crusade. Last Crusade is where the goofiness, just like Batman Forever, everyone hates Batman and Robin, but Batman Forever introduced this goofy crap. And then that seeped into Batman and Robin. Same with Last Crusade. There's hijinks and funny things and like, oh, no ticket and all this weird. It's like, oh, okay. So these hijinks, like they're spinning around, like they're tied up and they're spinning around. There's like a room of Nazis and they spin around again. I'm like, this is literally like a Three Stooges or Marx Brothers skit. Like, what is happening here? This is not Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is serious. And I know they wanted to lighten it up. Same with Return of the Jedi. RoboCop 3 was a disaster. Same with Batman Forever. They lightened it up because part 2 of Batman Returns was too creepy and Penguin was weird and all that. It's like, okay, well, you're ruining the thing. Anyway. But again, I'm content with all of those, except for RoboCop 3. That's a disaster. But like, I'm content. It's like, okay, there you go. Crystal Skull, they brought Mutt Lange in, Shia LaBeouf. I actually watched it again 2 days ago and didn't mind it as much as when I first saw it. And I think that's because I now know the state of film that we're in, where now, Crystal Skull still had respect for Indiana Jones. He's still the man in that movie. And Mutt Lange like talks shit, but he's a young punk kid in the 50s. He's gonna talk shit, right? He thinks he's a badass. And Indiana Jones makes fun of him. He's like, listen, kid, you don't have to get angry every time just to prove you're a tough guy, right? But overall, Mutt Lange can't complete the task, right? So he has to bow to Indiana Jones to complete the tasks. And Crystal Skull, I'm gonna come back to this in a second. So now, Dial of Destiny. We have to compare this to modern movie making and let's say Crystal Skull, which is the last one, because Crystal Skull has no comparison to Temple and Raiders. Last Crusade doesn't either. Temple and Raiders are like gritty, awesome pulp adventures. Last Crusade is a fun movie. It's like fun adventure, not pulp style adventure, which usually has like evil things going on, like the people melting, all that stuff, and like the ripping the hearts out. That's pulp adventures that are kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say cool, but a little bit more like badass. Last Crusade isn't, and Crystal Skull definitely isn't either. So these two kind of go a little bit closer together than these two. I know people will disagree with me, and that's completely fine. But now we're in this movie. This Dial of Destiny is so far removed. Like, there's all like Dial of Destiny is just car chases. That's it. It's just random generic car chases in the streets that we've seen 4,000 times. We've seen them in the other Indiana Jones movies. I'm going to take you to the comparison of the Crystal Skull chase scene. So there's a car chase scene, standard action trope, right? They're in the Jeep, they're going back and forth, and the skull is jumping, they're throwing it and getting it, and then one guy gets, and then one guy whips it away, and then they're smashing each other, and then, look, Shia LaBeouf, who is a fencer, which they did explain, he's there, Kate Blanchett comes up, they're sword fighting while the cars are driving, right? Then they almost go on a cliff, whoa, the cliff. Then they get to a part, and there's all these ants, they fall out. Then again, Indiana Jones has to have a fist fight with this big German guy. So he's having a fist fight with this German guy while ants are going all around. And you know, if you touch the ground, the ants are going to crawl up you and eat you all up. So there's a lot going on. There's that part in the tombs where those Mayan protector guys come out and start fighting Indiana Jones and Mutt. They're fighting, they're beating them up. It's like, right, there has to be a little bit of level of weirdness to it. Like, what are these guys just sitting around all day waiting for people to enter this tomb, which no one ever does? But that's a pulp thing. That's a pulp adventure thing. Look at Raiders of the Lost Ark in the first 5 minutes. When Alfred Molina takes the L, runs off, Indiana Jones jumps the pit and he's grabbing onto that's those strands, and they fall a bit more, and that door's closing. And it's closing. And you're like, at the rate of which that door is closing, Indiana Jones cannot make it. That is how the pulp serials work. That's how the adventure serials work. It's like, oh my God, he's not going to make it. Oh, and they cut back and it's like it's going down. They cut back, it's going down. I'm like, you should be lower, right? And then he just makes it through, just barely makes it through, right? That's what these cliffhanger serials are all about. Temple of Doom, same thing. The spikes are coming down. You're like, they should be dead. Like it's like every time they cut back, it's like it's almost like the same thing. The grinder, the conveyor belt grinder. It's like, you're like, wait a minute, you should be grounded up by now. That is how, that is the trope. That is what the hell these movies are about. It builds and builds the tension. It's grinding it in. You're like, oh, come on, get out, get out, get out. None of this is present in the Dial of Destiny. None of it. So, it is way too long. It's 2.5 hours long. It's way too long. Generic, boring. Now, Crystal Skull has many problems, but at least it's under 2 hours. Listen, Last Crusade for me has some problems as well, but it's under 2 hours. I'm not sitting there thinking, what the hell's going on with my life? I need to end my life right now because this is so awful. But Steven Spielberg is still a competent filmmaker. He does, right? He doesn't make them like he used to, but if Last Crusade and Crystal Skull are the weaker ones, then that's not that bad. Like if Last Crusade is the weakest of the trilogy originally, then we're in pretty good shape, because at least that's a fun adventure movie where you actually care about the characters. See, that's the other thing. So Dial of Destiny, given the fact that it's boring, uninspired, going through the motions, they don't care. James Mangold, Kathleen Kennedy, whatever, they don't care about Indiana Jones. They're not trying to bring anything exciting to you at all, because they're not even trying to one up the stakes. They're just like, yeah, I have a car chase. What cool thing will happen during the car chase? Nothing. Even Crystal Skull. Well, maybe they could sword fight while they're on the cars. And people will be like, oh, that's silly. Yeah, but that's a pulp adventure thing. That's at least, I can at least call back to Crystal Skull and say, that was kind of neat. This was kind of cool. That temple looked pretty good. Like something, right? If I'm giving that movie, let's say a 6 out of 10. So let's say I'm giving 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10 to the first two. Last Crusade's probably like a 7 out of 10 for me, maybe 7.5, right? I'd say Crystal Skull is probably like a 6. Like, it's like, yeah, it's pass. I mean, it's not that great. It, as an Indiana Jones movie, it should have been better, right? But Last Crusade should have been better as an Indiana Jones movie. I feel that both those movies did not live up to what these two first movies set out to be. Okay, sorry guys, it's taking a long time. Let's get it. Let's do it. The story of this is 0. I'm giving this. I'll just tell you. I'm giving this movie a 1 out of 10. I'm giving Dial of Destiny a 1 out of 10. The story is piss. Like, they have to get a thing. Okay, but that's all the Indiana Jones movies. The story is one thing, but the plot, which is included in my category of story, is garbage. It's just they're walking around. Car chase, then Indiana Jones gets kidnapped. Like, literally, they put a bag on his head at least 3 times in this movie, and that was from Crystal Skull. I'm like, why do he keeps getting captured? Oh, he's an old man. They shouldn't have made this movie. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted this movie. You made it with an 80-year-old man, and now you're stuck with an 80-year-old Indiana Jones. Well, you shouldn't have made it. You should have either just rebooted it with a new actor, but they would have made it a garbage movie anyways. It doesn't really matter. Like, when I'm saying they could have rebooted it and casted a new actor, that was me assuming that the quality of filmmaking and adventuring would be the same as the first 3 films, because Last Crusade still has adventuring aspects to it and figuring out puzzles and stuff. There's still that. Even Crystal Skull has some of that. So even that is somewhat in the realm. This movie is so far removed from all the other Indiana Jones movies. This isn't like, oh, is it better than Crystal Skull or is it worse? No, it's way the hell worse. Like, not even remotely close. So if you hate Crystal Skull, this movie is even worse, because anything that you didn't like about Crystal Skull is amplified to 1,000. Plus, it's way too long and it's super boring. And the characters are awful. I'm giving this a 1 out of 10. I'm giving a 0.5 for Harrison Ford, because I like Harrison Ford and I feel bad that he's in this, but not that bad because he chose to be in it. So, that's I'm not giving Harrison Ford a pass on this one, but it's Indiana Jones. I love the character so much. I could never give it a 0 for, and I'll give it 0.5 for the music. There you go. 1 out of 10. All right. But the other characters are absolutely dreadful and awful. There's a kid sidekick, worst sidekick ever. The Phoebe Waller-Bridge, is that the actress's name? Terrible. Absolute, the worst character ever. And people are talking about, like, oh, Captain Marvel, and what was the other one? And Ray, and all this stuff. Okay. Captain Marvel still had fights in here. Captain Marvel still fought people. At least there's a fight. The Last Jedi, which is awful. Yeah, but at least the Last Jedi, at least Rey fought in that Emperor's palace or whatever, right? At least there was a fight. Like, she picked up the friggin' lightsaber and fought somebody. I'm like, okay, that was kind of fun. Holy crap, nothing happens. Like, this movie is way worse than Last Jedi, because, look, I'm a fair reviewer. Last Jedi has it's too long. It's got a poor story, right? The characterization of Luke Skywalker is the worst thing ever made. It's so offensive. Okay, but Luke Skywalker's not in every scene being offended. That's one thing. But also, it's like, okay, it looks pretty good. Like, there's some good fights, right? There's some action. You see how reasonable I am? I'm super reasonable. I'd give Last Jedi maybe like a 3 or 4 out of 10, maybe, yeah, 3.5 out of 10. Because there's some fights, and you're like, okay, that was kind of a cool fight. Listen, we have to be reasonable, people. I'm being very reasonable. The fight was cool in that palace thing. That was pretty awesome. And some people might think it sucks. That's cool. I thought it was cool. There's a lot of visual aspects to Last Jedi that look good. Visually, it looks good. This movie was dark. Couldn't tell what was going on. They had a big German guy, the biggest German guy that you could find. I don't know if he's really German, whatever. The actor's huge. And you thought, oh, this will be a good fight. No, there's no fight with that guy. But that's an Indiana Jones trope. He has to fight a big guy or someone capable. Now, in Crystal Skull, they diminished that guy because Harrison Ford was older. So they made him more athletic versus, like, huge. Because the other guys are always, like, big, huge guys, right? But, like, what the hell, man? It's so boring. Yeah, the enjoyment factor is 0. I'll give 0.5 to the artistry for the music of John Williams. I'll give 0.5 to the characters for Indiana Jones. Phoebe Waller-Bridge for the in her first scene where she appears with Indiana Jones, talking to him about her father and all that, I thought, hey, she's okay. She seems like she's pretty cool. I'm like, why is everyone hating on her so much? And I thought, oh, is this one of these, oh, they don't like her just because she's a woman or something? And I'm watching, I'm like, okay. And then like the snap of a finger, and she is the most irritating garbage character of all. I hate people that talk down to the hero or make fun of stuff. It's like, this is an Indiana Jones movie. You are not talking down. They didn't talk down. Mutt Lange talked down to Indiana Jones, but got proven wrong immediately. And he's a 50s kid who thinks he's a badass. He's got his big collar. He's got his big slicked hair, right? What is the reasoning of this character? Why is she behaving that way? And then she has a big speech about how she's a great, independent, strong woman, except for the fact that she was arrested and bailed out by this rich guy who then she married for money. Is that how an independent woman deals with her life? And she needs a little kid to save her. Did we write this poorly? It's awful. This movie is a 1 out of 10, and that's me being generous. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's Canada Day, or Canada Day is coming up. So there's my present to James Mangold and Kathleen Kennedy. I gave you a 1 out of 10, not a 0. This movie really hurt me. Crystal Skull did not hurt me. I watched it, I thought, yeah, this isn't very good, is it? And it's kind of not great. But then I rewatched Crystal Skull, and I kind of, look, I give things a pass. I'm a bit of a softie. I like the Flash movie, right? I don't fall into the fandom menace where I'm angry all the time. I'm like, yeah, there's some, listen, Rise of Skywalker. There are some fun action bits, I suppose. Like, I don't hate these things. I bought those movies. I don't hate on stuff just to hate on it. Everyone knows I don't like the Man of Steel or the BVS and whatever. But that's a whole different thing. If you like those movies, I don't, I'm like, fine, I bought those, it's still Superman fighting guys, whatever. It's not the real Superman, but it's still someone fighting someone. So I can at least say that there's some action, Indiana Jones was boring. I yawned 7 times, and I checked my phone. I've never checked my phone in a theater ever. I've never checked my cell phone in a theater ever since the dawn of the invention of cell phones. And I had one immediately. As soon as I had one. Not once did I ever checked it until this movie. I've never yawned in a movie until yesterday. This is crazy. It hurt me because I want to be an archaeologist. I loved Indiana Jones, and this property is dead. It's completely dead. Nobody was in the theater. Nobody laughed at any of the lines. No one cheered at anything. Not in anything. Oh, here's Sala. Nobody cheered. Nobody clapped. Nothing. Even in the Flash movie, when people showed up, when they showed the Christopher Reeve part at the end, people clapped. So just let that seep in for a second. Even the Flash movie, which everyone hates, even that movie, people cared a bit. Nobody cared on this movie. Indiana Jones is a dead property. So I've got the 4 movies on 4K. I'll watch 1 and 2 a whole bunch of times. I rewatched all 4 just this week. And I'm okay to sit through any 4 of those. I could definitely, even Crystal Skull. And I think everyone owes a bit of an apology to Shia LaBeouf and a little bit of an apology to Spielberg, because yeah, Crystal Skull was not very good. They sort of had their heart in the right place. They kind of wanted to do something, but they missed the mark with having his son come in. I don't like having the family with Marion and all that. It feels weird. The son coming in and he's about to pick the hat up. You're like, whoa. Their heart was kind of there, but their brain wasn't. They didn't really think it through. They're like, we can introduce a new character. It's like, people don't like that. People don't want a new James Bond. They just want the normal James Bond doing stuff. We just want Indiana Jones. If you have to recast them, then that's what you got to do. Do not do this 2.5 hour torture fest where you just destroy the character they literally destroyed Indiana Jones for 2.5 hours. Even Last Jedi did not destroy Luke for 2.5 hours because he wasn't in every scene. In this one, Indiana Jones is in every scene, and it's just literally destroying him every scene for 2.5 hours. It is awful. Go to the dentist, skip Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Until next time.